Hi guys, we have officially started. The video started before, but not the sound. Your quote, number 2, massive power is self-awareness. All right, I got some other people to pick on. Liz, what does massive power is in self-awareness? What's that mean to you? All right, I don't know if the people on the video, that's what I'm curious to find out. You know, when we talk in here, I know they can hear me because I have the mic right here. Um, but from a religious standpoint, self-awareness, you have something to fall back on. It's a massive power to have. Um, Now, is it possible to have a massive self-awareness of things and not have a Christian background? Of course. Uh, in my thinking, having a Christian background or having a rock, I call Jesus my rock or my stake in the ground that I can hold on to or come back to or hug is, really vital. Um, so this power is, as we discussed last class, is also a means of seeing things from a different perspective. And I might as well give you guys these two words. We're going to be using them a lot, not as much as the world culture class, but a person that is an apologist or a movement that is an apologist or a person that is pious. Okay, an apologist and pious. You need to write those two words down. Okay. You had me last year. Can you tell the class, since you're up here close, what an apologist is? Remember? You forgot. No, she didn't. As soon as someone starts to say how about you? You forgot to. I know you people online all know that they were with me before. An apologist. All right, I know somebody in here that knows what is an apologist. Good and loud. Okay, someone who introduces new ideas. Well, we're going to go through a list. Liz is shaking your head. What is an apologist? Okay, an apologist again can take on the world, sort of to speak. He stands out or she stands out. It takes a while in history before we get a lot of lady apologists. Uh, One of the most obvious persons that you probably know of is Martin Luther King. He was the form of an apologist. He wasn't afraid to stand out and say things and do things. So in American history, we have those. We also have countries that act like that. We also have movements within the country or the new country that we're going to be looking at, New America. It takes a while to become called America, but those things happen. Okay, what is just the word pious? If you're you're a very pious person. Bless you? Any idea? Just the opposite. A pious person is willing to look at both sides of the picture or to keep an open mind. Okay? Now, it could be a form of being a liberal if you're open-minded, but, when do you cross that line? In American history, you're going to see lots of people and countries cross the line. For a quick example, when somebody came back, and we'll get to that in a little bit, hey, there's a land over there. We were on our way to Asia where we know there are gold and riches, and we were trying to find a shortcut to go the other direction around the world. And but when they came back, they said, "Oh, there's a land out there. The soil's fertile." And we didn't see many people at the time because we didn't spend that. We just touched base and came on back because we were running short of supplies. What we brought with us is the only way we could stay alive. So they had to sail back. But they came back with word, and anyway, the British and the Spanish were the first two major exploring countries, and then they feuded and fought over who was going to get control of what portion of land. There's the hint for question 2. These three, it's not the entire answer, but these are the 3 questions that I post. I didn't type them out yet on Populi, but I said there would be 3 questions today that you needed to work on to turn in. And you people that are live here, you need to hand them in when we start class on Monday. And people online need to have them sent to Populi to me by 9:30 a.m. Okay? But these are the 3 questions, and we're going to be talking a little bit about them. But first, I want to set the trend for New America and the exploration. And I already gave you a great hint on why we were exploring this time in history. The dates are important in that this occurs in the 1400s. In some cases, as early, I believe the earliest recorded is 1487. And that was Diaz. And he actually did not come this way to New America, but he was one of the first ones to set sail with the country behind him, and they went around actually Africa and around and had to turn back and come back home because they didn't find what they were looking for. And of course, to stay alive, you only have so many supplies you could put on a sailing ship. Now, that reminds me, have anybody ever been to San Diego for one of the original, not original, but like the Mayflower is rebuilt to look what it was? And have any of you been there here in class? It's amazing how small they were to think about. We would just consider them a big yacht now, except they had sails. And, they weren't gigantic like I have taken a cruise or two. Those things are huge. So keep that in mind. It was scary. They didn't know what they were getting into. So anyway, on what page in your textbook has that map? Remember? I think it was 10. If you got your book with you, online line, go ahead and turn to the map and see if you can figure out a few things. Has anybody, when you looked at the map, that's here that can blurt it out? Because I can't hear you guys unless you really yell loud online. Who actually landed first in, I'm going to, for the sake of the map, North America? Not the United States necessarily, but North America. And you cannot count old biblical history of the Saxon and the land bridge, but from this part of history in 1400s and the discovery of a land mass and actually went to it and landed. You got a list of people there. Which one do you think? You're looking it up on your phone. You can't do that. All right. Oh,
yeah, I have the pictures.
Oh, okay. No problem then. There's a pause. In my day, we used to call him JC. It wasn't Jesus Christ. JC and the boys. John Cabot. Technically, he landed in the area or went to the area that we would call in Canada, Nova Scotia. In the United States, it would be around Maine, that area. And he actually landed in that area and then came back. Okay? And it was successful in that they didn't face any big bad storms or Native Americans that wanted to kill him. Okay, so there you go. Now, if you move along in history, that was 1497. We move backwards in history, moving along backwards. Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, but he did not land what we consider North America or United States. And that's only for reference for you guys, so you have an idea where where we're at. He actually landed where? Come on. San Salvador, West Indies, Cuba. He hit those islands. And, yeah, well, that's what they're called a lot of times, the Caribbean islands. And they were landfall, but he didn't go any further and, say, hit part of the what we call United States or Mexico. He just went and came back, and I don't think this is Asia because we didn't see, any of the things that we thought we were going to see. So, truly speaking, Columbus did not discover America like a lot of our history books, and, especially grade schoolers, and the little song I started singing, 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. But anyway, now, okay, what was Columbus? Was he English or was he Spanish? Or, what they call Portugal, Spain. Okay? You know? He was a Spanish explorer. Say that again.
Didn't Christopher Columbus go to a different, king and queen to get funded, and then they rejected him? So why did he go to a different one?
Money. Because they were, they just like later on when the Mayflower and people between those two countries where most of the world's power and money were. And in the religion, the Catholic Church, etc., Church of England. So you had the natural conflicts of two major, I'm going to call them nations, since that's how you know them, but they were areas in Europe. They weren't just, like we would think of Germany or Great Britain or Portugal. They had control of areas, just like in biblical times. The Roman Empire wasn't just in Rome, Italy. Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. Now, when these first two, by the way, Columbus did go back more than once and found a few other things, but all of them started to. After Diaz in 1487, Columbus in 1492, and John Cabot in 1497, number two, that was a sneeze for you guys, all over my shirt. By the way, aloha. Other people wanted to become part of this, and they were considered just explorers. And sometimes you're going to find out here in a little bit, they were actually thieves. They weren't sent by the mother country or by any country. They were out there for themselves. There's got to be some riches out there, and then when this started happening and people started reporting back, things, that's when the piracy of things in the open ocean started to take effect. Okay, our next great big explorer kind of was two people at the same time, Magellan and Cortez. Now, in this quick text, Magellan is more like, he had a lot more backing. He had some bigger ships, because all through these years they're building things and making things better. And he actually started going further in different directions. South America, Africa, on through the Caribbean islands and into that side of the Gulf of Mexico, as we call it nowadays. They didn't then, but I think you've heard of a place like the Philippines. Those are the kind of names we're used to, but of course they didn't have those names then. But they kept running into things and finding things and coming back. This was considered something really valuable. They discovered papaya, fruits, different fruits. They tried to preserve it and bring them back for people to, and of course, as you know, they didn't have ice storage and it didn't necessarily work out, but they could tell the story verbally that, there's things out there that you might be interested in. And then sometimes, especially towards the southern part of the New World, where the Aztecs and the Spanish were, they ran into them. And guess what? They did have gold and silver. And they did take things that they shouldn't have and started bringing them back. And that's when when one country, the two countries in power found out, then they started battling with each other on the open, stealing stuff right there on the ocean. Just boarding another ship, crashing into it, just all kinds of unhuman things, but that's what humans do. Greed, I want this, I want that. Okay, we'll go through a couple more real quick. Also, in that period of time with Magellan and Cortez, da Gama is actually a few years, but those three are kind of all together between 14, right after John Cabot. Just more people going out from these areas of the European world, as we're going to call it. Now,
You stopped and restarted that, right?
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Yes, we did. I want to one more explorer, which leads to more of the American landing in America was not Cortez, Cartier, Cartier. Guess what? A third country enters the race. He was a Frenchman, France. Okay. And you know, a lot of these guys, since it was almost, well, it was 100% male, he decided to go the same route that John Cabot and took, and saw some things different, and he landed a little bit lower than Nova Scotia, as we would call it. You guys know where Nova Scotia is, kind of Greenland, northern Canada. Kind of have that in your mind a little bit. When you look at history, that you should do that. You should look where you're at in the world at the time. And then relate it, you guys, to current day, and then it makes more sense for you. Here's a sidebar. I like to do these once in a while. Plymouth Rock. Famous group lands there, but where is Plymouth Rock in today's United States? Wild guess. Is it in Florida? Okay. Is it in Pennsylvania? Virginia? Huh? Pennsylvania is inland. It hadn't even been discovered until the religious group comes in there. Providence, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Maine. Okay, you can take that area, because they weren't states. They were areas, okay? And, of course, you've heard of the Pilgrims in Plymouth Rock. But, you know, that's how they name things or put things in perspective. And anyway, now I think you can see between France, the English, and the Spanish. We'll just do it that way. You can see why this was so important. The treaty, in order to stop all chaos and complete warfare and the piracy of the high seas, they decided somewhat peacefully, the three major nations of Europe, what we call Europe now, of that part of the old world, they decided with this treaty, we'll take this, you can have this, and then the third party can have some of this. And in some cases, they even shared areas of the New World. But they established boundaries and rules and regulations, and to get along, this treaty was devised. So there you go with kind of an answer for that. And okay, now question 1 and 3, of course, are systems that go beyond the beginning of the landings in the New America. Okay, they stand for something, and that's for you to find out. Now, when did the Pilgrims land? Anybody remember? It was after all this, of course. 1400s? 15? 1600s. Now we narrow it down to a early, late, middle. Since I got live people in here, don't be afraid to be right or wrong. Very early, because there are some things that happened as we tried to, we meaning the explorers, tried to land and take up settlement. They soon realized they weren't very well prepared. They didn't, the seasons of the year. Now, if you know anything about weather, up north is much, much colder than down in the West Indies, Florida, and even year-round. But things happen, and I'm going to put this one on the board. Ronak, if I can spell it right. Roanke. Now, other things happened before this, and this is actually a settlement that was tried a little further south of where the Pilgrims and the Puritans landed. But it was an experiment in that, without naming a country, they said, you guys get off the ship, stay here, and here's the supplies. We have enough to get back. We'll go over back home and bring you some more supplies back. It didn't work out so well, and it was in the fall when they left the people there, and when they came back, they were gone, and it was called the mystery, and they had no clue what happened. They didn't find dead bodies; they were just gone. There's some theories that they, blended in, took off on their own, probably did pass away or become part of a movement, what we would call Native Americans. And that's why in your textbook that shows different areas of Native Americans, and we had no clue. And we meaning people made the mistake of trying to turn them into people like us, and they had things to offer us, but it took a while. It took people like the Puritans and the Pilgrims to show kindness and love, even though that didn't always work. The first Thanksgiving. Now, it wasn't until about 15 or 20 years after this disaster, and several attempts to realize we somehow have to figure out how to survive over here in this new America or this new land. We got to make our own crops. We got to grow something. We can't just go to the store and pick up something. It wasn't there. We have to have a way, after some brutality, of protecting ourselves. We got to build stuff, and we've got to have shelter from the storm, so to speak. None of that, I can't fathom how they could think that way. When you guys go on a vacation, you take stuff with you. We got the convenience of the credit card or staying in a motel or in a motorhome. But when we travel, we have an idea of what we want to take along to wear. Well, these guys, they had no clue what to expect until it happened. And the reports came back. Holy moly, there's some savage people out there. And the two primary groups of people were From the south were the Aztecs, the Mexicans, Aztec nation, and the influence from central Mexico on up through into what we call United States, and the Native Americans of the north, and in the middle they actually blended. They actually intermarried between the two groups. And they, as you know, they probably were very set in their ways, and when all these weird white people from Europe came and started landing over here and taking my land away, you could see there would be a clash. It's just natural history. But it sets the stage for us to get into this era of American history. Okay? It wasn't a piece of pie or anything. It was pretty tough. Now, there's a couple individuals in this era of time that you should have written down, and I'm going to repeat one because he did stay over here eventually. John Cabot, Sir Walter Raleigh, Raleghh. These two individuals stood out a little bit in that they hired certain individuals to go back on the ships to really report, hey, you need to bring this, you need to be prepared for this. Because as the word spread, my great-great-great-grandfather decided he was going to stow away on one of the ships and come over here. I'm making this up, but, people started doing that. Hey, I'll pay you so much money if you let me come on. I want to go to the New World. And, of course, that's going to lead to why they wanted to leave in the first place, what was happening. Because it turned out when they first started, again, in review, they were looking for riches, and they were looking for the big trade route to Asia, to save them time, and they didn't realize all this land was in between. And so anyway, because land had to be cleared to be farmed, to grow things, you had to cut down trees somehow to build your house or your fort or your, in this case, area, township. All right. The first attempt that became not a failure came because of two groups, the Puritans, okay, and what was the other group called? People on the camera already have the answer. Puritans and the Pilgrims are the Puritans. And they have to do with religion. If you wasn't aware of that, it came to help bring peace and harmony to the New World as a group to get away from certain things. I'll come back to those. We'll have time to get into that a little bit of why they left Europe in the first place. And there's some specific reasons you should know. Okay, their little colony, if you want to, it's not really a colony yet because that's an organized territory, but their little villages, they were able to sustain themselves because they were farmers and religious people. They knew how to take care of themselves that way. And then when the Native Americans come in to explore each other and to figure out, who are you guys? They welcomed them, and they tried not to change them like we did later. Now, the next jump in history to a successful building of an area is called Jamestown. I know you've heard of that. There's others, but these kind of stick out. This particular one. And Jamestown was down around what we would call Virginia, a little further, kind of in the middle of the United States on the East Coast, kind of, compared to Maine and Florida. And they discovered explorers and people coming at the time. They finally figured out that depending on where they went to or landed, there was different types of Native Americans, different type of soil. Some places less trees, easier to build, easier for this or that. But they still did not accept the Native Americans for what they were and to blend in with them and to help each other. And this is why there were so many disasters. And I guess if you think about this, it kind of goes with the virus. When you go someplace, since that's happening to us right now, you take certain things with you. Okay? When you travel on a ship enclosed in an area, like what happened to some of the cruise ships as the virus broke out, you bring things with you. When you land on, when you land, in this case, some of you may have a form of a virus, not today's virus, but a disease, and you infect other people. And of course, they infected each other, and people that worked strong or knew how to take care of themselves, like a farmer or a hunter or people that just know how to live off the land. Well, it takes you. It killed the Native Americans, some of them.